going through the same issue again, you know, decade after decade. I want to make sure I hold that space. And so I've been committed, but I am a little bit tired. How are you?
Of course, you got to make sure. Like, I always tell folks, this is a movement, not a moment. So we have to like make sure we're building up our stamina, that we are taking care of ourselves for the long haul, because it's not over, right? And we both know that. I just want to double check with you before I jump in. I don't want to take all of your time. It's 9:30. We tired. But just so we're good, can I record this just so that I can pass it off to the folks who transcribe it, etc.? Is that good?
Yeah.
Perfect. Cool. All right. Thank you, Joshua, for making this time for me. I know it's really late, but I appreciate it nonetheless. I know you know briefly about, well, not briefly, you're one of our influencers, so you know a lot about the campaign. Thank you again for joining on board with us back in November. But just to update you, so a national agenda for Black girls, we launched in November with the goal and the mission of getting presidential elects and candidates to really focus in on the issues that are important to Black girls and Black gender expansive young people across the country. Understanding that we cannot create a better country or a better world if we are not rooting our policies in what's going to create spaces and environments for them to thrive, right? You have to invest in their future. And we wanted us to take this week, we've been doing kind of like a rollout of different newsletters over the past maybe 4 months now, really picking up different key pieces of our policy priorities, and really thinking about what are the ways and moments that we can shift, that we can be flexible as organizers, as policy makers, as folks who advocate on behalf and beside young people in the city, across the country. Where's our voice and point in the work? And where can we like really create synergy, create attention, and amplify the voices of young people. With all of that said, last week we discussed in our newsletter the differences between abolition, reform, defunding, dismantle, all those pieces. And this week we really want to make sure that we're uplifting the work of folks who hold these conversations of abolition work, who have been doing this work, right? Because we often remember and we know that like Black women, Black femme folks, they don't get the credit that they're due. Things become often trendy, and we like erase them as a society. We don't acknowledge their work. So this week we want to uplift the work of folks like Candace Montgomery, Cece McDonald, yourself, Miriam Kaba, all the folks who are doing on-the-ground organizing specifically for Black trans lives and Black trans liberation movements. So that's why I was like, I think the perfect person for us to interview is you. If you can like walk us through, I'm gonna pass you the mic in a second, but if you can just like walk us through, I guess you organized the march over the past weekend. So maybe just like talking to us about the march, what it meant, what was the moment like, what led up to that march, etc. And I can go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So we have our Liberation March on this Sunday, Sunday afternoon at 1 o'clock in front of the Brooklyn Museum. And we did it. It was a team of organizers we worked with to put the action logistically together. And then we worked with a number of community partners who were based here in Brooklyn, specifically Glitz Inc. For the girls, the Okra Project, and Black Trans Femmes in the Arts. All 4 of those different organizations represent different sectors of trans-led community, Black trans-led community organizing work happening right now. For example, For the Girls focuses specifically on housing and medical care. The Okra Project focuses specifically on tackling issues of hunger and food insecurity. Black Trans Femmes in the Arts focuses specifically on arts and media, and Glitz is focusing also on housing. And so the idea in bringing this group of people together for us this weekend was to imagine what it would be like if we didn't just care about Black trans lives after the fact, but we thought about them beforehand. Because so oftentimes what we find with the cases of people like Dominique Fells, for example, from Philadelphia, is that by the time we're finally hearing these names and we're finally hearing these stories, it's too late. And the brutal murders have already happened. What would the world look like if our organizations and the people who are working to build full, rich, and empowered lives for those Black women and girls in our community were well-funded and well-empowered? And so that was kind of the way that we came together. And gosh, I think in the very beginning, so we called the action less than 2 weeks before. And then we found out about the deaths of both of the young ladies, Dominique and Raya, just about 5 or 6 days ago is kind of when it got started to get national media attention. And I think that kind of helped us garner a lot more interest. I think that people were outraged, particularly with the gruesome nature of these murders. And I think that now that we're finally kind of pushing the discourse past reaction and trying to step more into preventative and trying to build positive futures for ourselves to step into, I think that we finally kind of open up the space to care more than about just the state violence, right? And that we're realizing that a lot of the issues that we're dealing with, the issues of robbery, the issues of sexual assault, the issues that are going on are direct reflections of the ills that exist in our society that are directly related and the otherwise apparatuses that work to oppress us. And so I think that this confluence of events helped our event pick up steam and an audience, and we were so surprised, of course. I don't think any of us expected that many people. So we were super surprised on Sunday, yeah, when it was 15,000 people. And it was no permits. We didn't negotiate or deal with the police in setting it up. It was completely put on, like I said, by the people, for the people, with community partners, with those of us who were from the community, all speakers from the community, everybody was Black. And we also did a march through the community. So we started off and we did our rally there, and I was the host for the rally. And then we ended up marching from the Brooklyn Museum all the way over to Fort Greene Park. And then we held a kind of closing ceremony there as well. And so that's just a little bit more about the background of the action. And of course, the work continues. You know, there's so many things that we're finding out new information every single day. And this project of abolition is going to be a lifelong project. And so we're excited about the action, but also still thinking so much more about all the work that there is left to do.
Yeah, thank you for that context. And I really want to uplift what you said about working from preventative, like being like preventative care folks, being folks who we don't want to wait until the problem or till the issue like transcends and is right in front of us. I think that's really important to note that so many of even the policies that we're pushing forward on this agenda, it's really so that we can take care of young people before these things even happen, before these systems become involved, before it gets any further. So I thank you for uplifting that. It's really important in the work that we do. I just want to ask, so what are some of the demands? So I know with the Black Liberation March over the weekend, I saw like a few demands specifically from the Black trans LGBTQIA community. And I just wanted to give you some space to name what are your demands from the state, from police, from this country, and who do you feel is accountable? Like who do you hold accountable to foreseeing that those demands are met?
Yes, of course. Thank you for that. So I think the one of the inspiring demands for our action this week is the accountability of police officers and agents of the state who enact murders against our communities. I don't know if you're aware of the murder of Toni McDade that happened down in the South recently. But so thinking about that from the state and government perspective, people being held accountable finally because they have not been historically held accountable due to a number of corrupt policies in this country, such as qualified immunity that we have. So I'm sorry, you hear our celebrations in the back. But yeah, so fighting against those kind of policies that kind of help these officers evade accountability when they perpetrate these injustices and these acts of violence within our community. And also, once again, holding the perpetrators of intra-community violence accountable as they happen. So that way we don't have to have people like Dominique being found severed in a suitcase floating down the river. That way people like Rhea are not found being carjacked, basically being shot because someone wanted to steal her car. And so we're asking, one, of course, for the accountability of these perpetrators of violence within our community. And then, of course, the second demand is moving more into this preventative measure, thinking about how we can have fully funded organizations within our community, and also social services and projects where so often we find that the crimes that are perpetrated within our community are because of a lack of access to resources or proper mental health treatment or proper address or redress to issues of addiction and so many other social ills that we have in this country today. And so a big part of it is connecting with the larger movement for Black Lives demands, and also just the calls for democratized access to power and redistribution of wealth all across the globe that's happening right now, where the demand is to disinvest from these forces that oppress our communities, disinvesting from the police forces, and then reinvesting in our crumbling infrastructure in this country, providing opportunities for healthcare, for public education, for libraries, for infrastructure, for parks and recreation, and so many of the public services that our community is so desperately in need of to prevent so much of this murder and violence that's going on. And so those are just kind of some of the major pieces around demands that we're hoping for. And of course, every community across the country, because of the nature of our legislative system and the localities and the state levels and the federal government levels, each different state or local group has their own demands based on what set of obstacles they're dealing with. But by and large, we were operating this weekend off the set of principles of accountability for the violence that has already occurred, and then also preventative measures going forward into the future where we have a reinvestment in our communities.
Thank you for that. I want to ask, I know you list like Brooklyn and Philly as two places where you call home. And we also have some representatives, some young people from Philadelphia that are part of our steering committee. So I wanted to really ask kind of like, what is your, like, thinking about like small goals? Like, are there like goals that you all have within the community, within organizing spaces, that you foresee that you're pushing forth towards like within the next month? So thinking about like what are maybe like some short-term goals you all have that you're naming, and then also like a broader question: what is your long-term vision? So when you dream of a world where Black trans liberation is centered, what is your vision for that world?
Yeah, well, I guess maybe on and here in my personal communities, and with my friends and my family who I organize with, just very specifically in my local space. Some of the things that we're working on right now, and some of the short-term things that we really hope to achieve, is putting an end to the cash bail system, not just here in New York, but also spreading to the rest of the places in the region, and also, of course, nationally. Who knows if we can get that done in the next couple of months, but that's something that so many, like another one of the partnering organizations that was with us on Sunday, they didn't have a speaker who represented, but they were there in their presence giving support, was the Emergency Release Group. And they've been working over the last couple of years to support LGBTQ prisoners, many of whom are being held at Rikers Island, one of the most corrupt and really dangerous facilities that we have here of detention in this country. And so we're thinking actively about how we can end the cycle of cash bail that keeps so many people in jail. And so for the immediate moment, what we've been doing is raising funds to support this liberation from the prisons and jails right now. But on a legislative and policy front, we're fighting really hard to just go ahead and make sure that the structural barrier that's there in the first place is gone. So we're doing harm reduction and trying to go at the root cause there. What are some of the other issues that people are working at? A lot of people all across the country and here in New Jersey and PA as well are working on ending qualified immunity. That way that a lot of these cops don't get to go without, don't get to just go without any forms of punishment. We're looking to end and I don't know the specific names of them. I know that we have Section 50A here in New York, but I don't know how it's legislated everywhere else around the country. We're looking to make sure that the information about officers who commit crimes, especially when there's a pattern or a history of abuse in the police forces that we have here, that people can be held accountable and that information can be shared. That knowledge can be used as power. And I think that when the complaints are all kept a secret, we're not given the ability to keep our community safe from a detailed and patterned, storied pattern of harm that we've seen. And so those are maybe some of the things that we're fighting for right now that feel really possible in the next month or so, particularly as we have the sustained pressure of thousands and thousands of people on the street. And a lot of these people who are in power looking to to do whatever they can to shut us up. So those kind of minor things are some of the things that we're looking at right now that I think can have really big tangible impacts on our community. And then some of the big picture things that we're thinking about is, okay, we know that we have a bloated incarceration system, and we need support and resources for these communities when they get out. And so thinking about that was one of the things that we raised, and that's why we work with Glitz Inc. As a partner. They were on Sunday when we had our action, in the midst of a $1 million capital campaign to build equity for Black trans folks in New York City. So the idea was to buy a building, and then to be able to move our Black, queer, and trans people when they come out of Rikers and give them a supportive space, give them access to the resources and support they need. Because many of the social services that we're asking for, when we're talking about the public schools and when we're talking about the libraries or the places of employment or fixing up our country, many people who have been convicted of felonies don't even get access to those kind of supports. And so figuring out how we build up our infrastructure, we resource our movements, and we build them up big and strong, so that way we can support our people as we radically reimagine what the world looks like without prisons and without police. And of course, from there, there's so many other things that we're looking to do. Like I said, really trying to center around building up the social supports for everyone in our society in a way that holds all of us, that we've never seen before. And so that's kind of like the larger vision that we hope to get into as soon as we can.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is brilliant. I was thinking about your post earlier I saw when I was scrolling about the Supreme Justice ruling, and the ruling basically being, oh, you can't discriminate against LGBTQIA trans folks on the job. And I saw you said, they got to get hired first, right? So just thinking about all the ways that these different policies need to be tackled, and what lens are we using to really see and make sure these policies are holistic and that we're meeting people's needs all across the board, right? Because you're gonna say they won't get discriminated against when they're hired. It's like, okay, cool, but like, and then also where's the policies that says you have to hire them, right? So make sure that that's also super clear too. So thank you for all of that information. And my last question for you would be, with all the momentum that we have right now, all the uprisings across the country, what would be, like, if you could say to the presidential candidates, one thing that's rooted in your community, one thing that you're pushing for in your organizing, what would that be? Like, what would you want presidential elects and candidates to know on behalf of Black trans communities, Black trans liberation, organizing spaces, Black young people? What would you like these folks to know?
Yeah, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. I think the biggest thing for me is that right now what we're demanding from everyone, all of the political officials, every level of our government, and also from members of our society, is a reinvestment in our communities. That's what we're asking for. And it's a simple demand, because when you think about it, the money that is being used by our government to do all of this stuff is our money. It's the money that we work for. It's the money they take from us. And so the demand is very simple. The money that, and mind you, it's poor and working class people who are paying taxes in this country. The very wealthy don't pay anything to help build the infrastructure of this country. They actually get that money back from us. They get that money back from us in tax breaks. They get that money back from us in loans. And so really it is off the backs of poor and working class people, queer and trans people, the everyday workers who make up the force of this economy, the muscle behind this economy. It's us who the country thrives off of. And basically now we're asking to shift the system where the very few get to benefit off of our labor, and to change it to where, in the wealthiest nation in the world, all of us, the many, get to benefit from the fruits of our labor, from centuries and centuries of work. And so I would say, particularly from the context of a Black trans person fighting in these uprisings, is that we're asking for a radical reimagination of how we relate to one another, how we uplift one another, how we protect one another. And the policy inroads are not enough if they're not coupled with supportive social programs in our society all around us to ensure that people have access to what they need. So thank you for bringing up that example. We're not just asking that people are not able to be fired, or you can be penalized for firing people because of their gender identity. We're also asking that our tax money, that the money that we work hard to create wealth in this nation is all about, that money is now reinvested in our community, so that way we have our own small businesses. That way we have our own communities. We have equity in our own properties. And this is what I'm saying. So the policy inroads important, yes, but it always needs to be coupled with an effort to make sure that those who are from the community, who are creating the wealth, have an opportunity to own those means of production and provide more sustained opportunities for our communities to not only survive, but to thrive. And that's the message that I would share with them.
Yes. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. I feel like I just got rejuvenated, inspired within these last 30 minutes. I appreciate this conversation so much. And I completely agree with you. Like folks who are closer to the pain, closer to the margins, always need to be closer to the power, closer to the equity, closer to the money, closer to the resources, everything. So I second and I third everything that you're saying. Okay, thank you so much. Is there any last thoughts, questions you have for me? Any last comments?
No, that was good. But just let me know. Just email me or text me if you need anything else from me, okay?
Thank you